and welcome to the Enchanted Woods, where we have the folk and the faraway tree. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit silly, but The Folk and the Faraway Tree was my favourite ever childhood story. It's the first book I ever read in one night, and it has a close place in my heart. So when I saw this in the charity shop for £2.50, I thought this would make a perfect art journal. Now, I have had this in my possession for a while, not quite sure how to tackle it. I've thought about covering it in fabric, I've thought about pulling it apart, but I actually like the way it feels. And I like how fluffy it is like that. It just feels really nice. So I'm going to do my best to preserve it. And I'm going to leave the spine as is, because yeah, but I have a feeling it might start falling apart, but if it does that, we'll deal with that as it happens. But for today, let's just get started, make a journal out of this, and maybe have a play with the Enchanted Forest collection at the same time.
So here are my childhood books. I still have them. They're very well loved and falling apart, very yellowed as you can see. I didn't want to craft on those ones because my granddad bought them for me, so they're very special. So the story behind that is when I was in primary 2, they started the concept of this kind of book fair that came into schools, and children could buy books at a discounted price. And my gran and granddad happened to be visiting because we lived in the north of Scotland and they were down in Lancashire. So they happened to be visiting, and my granddad gave me some money to treat myself to a book. So the book that I bought was The Folk and the Faraway Tree. And this was the first book that I ever read in one night, and it started an obsession with books, particularly at the time Enid Blyton books. But my love of reading came from that particular book. So this story reminds me of that, falling in love with reading, falling in love with the escape that you get going into magical worlds. But it also really very much reminds me of my granddad, who was an incredibly special person. So I'm preparing the book now to turn it into a journal. What I am doing is taking out lots of pages because we're going to be arting on them. They're going to get covered in paint and bits and pieces that's going to make them dimensional, and the spine won't cope. So I took out the middle pages of each signature and then a page either side of the signature. So the reason I've done that before I started as opposed to as I go is that you'd end up with the first half of the book all sort of being very close together, and then you'd realise that the spine wasn't coping and take out later pages, which will end up just looking weird, whereas actually the distribution of removed pages is even, and so it'll make for a better book in the end. I realise that might feel like a lot of wasted pages there when you saw those, but I promise you they will get used in future junk journals and in future craft projects. And I know some people are a little bit nervous when you start crafting in a book, but I promise you, books that do not sell in charity shops end up in landfill. And this book is so special to me. It's such a reminder of my childhood, of my granddad. This is going to become a work of art that is treasured. And so far better off to be altered and turned into something special that will be loved and cherished, hopefully for future generations, is better than something ending up in landfill. Now I've pulled out my new stamp. So in love with this collection because it just reminds me of all of the things that I've literally just said. So I decided to stamp out this massive tree on one of those book pages that we have removed from the journal. And the idea behind this was I really liked the idea of the faraway tree and then the words from the faraway tree in the tree. So that's what I did. I stamped it out and then fussy cut it all out and then glued it into my book. So when you're fussy cutting, it is good to have scissors that you're comfortable with, to use the entire blade so that you get a nice even coverage, and to move the paper and not your scissors. So I pop that on. I think that looks really good. And then I just stamp out a few more elements. I wanted everything to look even when I started painting on it. So again, I stamped out on book paper, but found a bit of the paper that was blank so that didn't have the words on it. So this all gets the same treatment. Stamp it out, cut it out, and then lay it on the page and arrange it so that I am happy with it. So I'm doing a bit of kiss cutting there, getting close to the edge, and then just arrange it all here until I am happy with it. Once I'm happy with it, I stick it all down. Now at this point, as I'm sticking it all down, I really like the contrast of the white against that coloured background. So at this point, see, this is the thing about art and craft. Projects evolved, and this one very much evolved and yeah, did its own thing. But at this point I'm looking at it going, do you know, I really like the contrast of that white. I think I'm going to keep it. So I neaten it all up and get it all ready. Then I'm also going to put a little bit of clear gesso on. Again, we're wanting to create a tooth, protect the paper, because the paper was not designed to have mediums on. It was designed to be red. And I decided to white out the windows because I didn't want the words in the windows. And I thought at this point it would be nice to have a little bit of shading on the tree. Keep it white, but just have a little bit of shading on the tree to create, I don't know, a bit of shadowing, a bit of nuance, a bit of interest, something along those lines. And as I started to get my pencils out and colour in, I really didn't like the way the pencil was laying down. Sometimes when you use gesso, it creates, as I said, it creates a tooth and it creates an even surface. So the pencil is sticking to it, but it just looked really grainy and it wasn't giving that slight shadowy look that I liked. And now at this point I was hinting it and think I've just ruined my idea. So we pulled out the watercolours and I just started filling it all in with watercolours, building up the watercolour, and thankfully the tooth that was created with the clear gesso was perfect. The watercolour was taking it really well and we managed to hide the hideous pencil colouring. You can still sort of see it a little bit, but as we gradually work it gets better. When it comes to crafting or creating a page or art, it will always go through an ugly stage, so don't worry when you look at it and go, oh, don't worry about that. It will get better. If it's not right, it's not the end. I'm adding a little bit of shadowing there to really make the tree pop out. And then I decided to bring the tree across the page so there was a little bit of unity between the two different sides. Again, it wasn't really liking the way that pencil was looking, so Artex paint markers to their rescue. They worked really nicely for me today. I have a bit of a love-hate affair with these. I absolutely love them, but sometimes they don't play ball. But they were playing nicely today, despite me feeling I need to keep putting my head in the shot every couple of seconds. Sorry about that. So I'm adding a little bit of the paint markers. They're fully opaque, so it just kind of helps to make a few things pop, and it covered up the horrible pencil work, and yeah, it looked really good. I decided that the windows were a little bit too white, so I added in a little bit of yellow and started just kind of smudging that with my finger. Once I start adding yellow into windows, I really like it when the glow goes across the actual object. So I did start pulling it across the tree as well. We'd lost a little bit of the detail with the acrylic markers because they are opaque, so I went back in with a gel pen and added that. And then I also wanted to tie the two sides together. So the original artist that drew the artwork for this particular book had these sort of like loose scribbly lines. So I mimicked those and copied those in the green that I'd created the other side. So it's to help the page flow, and then framed that last little bit with a doodly border. And again, just sort of added a few extra bits to make those bits tie together. So I decided to dedicate this book to my granddad, and that's why I left a big white space there. And so I just wrote a little intro to the book. So it just says, I dedicate this book to my granddad, William Oakes. He inspired me in so many ways. At the age of 7, he bought me the book The Folk and the Faraway Tree. It was the first book I read in one night. I got completely lost in the world of Silky and Moonface and ever-changing lands at the top of the tree. That night changed everything. It wasn't just a story, it was the moment I truly fell in love with reading. Thank you, Grandad, for giving me that book and for unknowingly opening a door that would lead to so many more. This page and the many pages after began with you. So that was what I have written to my granddad. And then I just brought that green back in because my writing was a bit squint. So to kind of make it flow a little bit, I added the green on the side and sort of gave it the same treatment. And that was page number 1 done. So I was still in the mood for playing and creating. So again, glued down a second page, and we also have some die cuts. Now in my head, I was wanting to try and create some form of gallery with these tree frames being frames for the picture, strangely enough. So I have got a few of those. I again keep sticking my head in the camera. I am sorry about this. I got a new camera, which is much sharper, but it's much further above my head, which means I've not quite got used to where my head should be. And when I get in for doing detailed work, I feel the need to sort of keep sticking my head in the camera. So I do apologise. Anyway, we colour up the frames using our Copic markers this time and do a little bit of blendy, adding leaves. And one of the tricks that I really think is good when colouring sort of branch work is bring the green into the branches as well. When you go into the forest, trees are very rarely just got brown trunks. I've been spending a lot of time studying trees recently because of this collection and because I've been so inspired, and I just keep drawing trees. And I've not come across any trees that the bark is brown. It's grey, it's rust, it's green. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. Now, again, with this, I was wanting to play with the fact that there are words on a page, and I wanted the words to be behind the frames. So I blocked out with white gesso outside the frames, and then I put clear gesso within the frames. And again, this is to provide a tooth, so I have no idea what I'm doing with it all at this point, but it just allows me to be able to work on it in the future. And I bring out my images and try to choose some images that I think will work nicely in the frame and stamp them all out. They are nice new stamps, so they just take a little bit of gentle peeling from the sheet, but oh, they're just so nice. And they're nice big chunky stamps as well. They really fill a space. So I've stamped out quite a few, as you can see, and I am colouring in. This particular doorway, I think it's really good to kind of show how you can really layer up colours. I wanted to give it like a real magical forest, enchanted forest feel because it matches with the story of the book. So by putting bright colours in and then going over it with the brown, it just kind of pops through slightly and just gives it a little bit more of an interesting look and an interesting vibe. So I absolutely love how that turned out, and I continued colouring all the bits and pieces with my alcohol markers. I have sped this up quite a bit because when I went to start editing, I think we had about an hour's worth of footage with colouring. And I'm not sure that you all guys like the colouring. I should maybe ask you, do you like watching me colour? Because a lot of people seem to like sort of jump away once I start colouring. So please don't, it's going to end soon. But anyway, it just shows that I coloured up all of these images. And then the next point is to fussy cut them all out. So when I'm fussy cutting, I sort of like loosely cut round so I don't have lots of spare scrap. It gets in the way of my hand. And once I do that, then I just cut around. In this instance, to make it easier, because we've got lots of little twiddly bits, I am sort of allowing a little bit of a white border so that we can keep all of that detail. And I bring my page back in and start assembling it and seeing what I think it will look like when it is all together. So just at this point, I'm just playing, seeing if I'm happy with it. And I did like it, but I just felt we had a lot of emptiness at the bottom of the page that I wasn't quite expecting. So I wasn't happy with that at all. So I decided to take this little stamp, and I've taken it off the block because I want it to go over the spine of the page and it wouldn't work with a block. So I've stamped that in, and hopefully I'm just thinking it'll add a little bit of extra colour to the bottom of the page. Now I went in with my alcohol markers again, but I don't know if you can see there's a really strange line between where we had clear gesso and white gesso, which looked kind of odd. So I started off blocking it out with alcohol markers and then came in with my acrylic markers again. As I said, they go over everything. They're great. And just kind of blocked it all out. Once I had that, I just felt the detail on the page, that was much better, and then I could start assembling it with the frames and the pictures. Then when I'd cut these extra bits off, I kind of realised that I could use them to add to the gallery feel. So I thought if I just sort of added that there, although we've not got a picture in it, it kind of gives the illusion of lots of frames sitting there. So I really liked how that turned out. That was a happy accident. I do like it when we have nice happy accidents in our craft projects. So again, just tweaking all of this so that we don't have like lots of extra bits, and it does look like a nice frame. And I'm working quite quickly so the glue's not fully dry, so I have a little bit of a wiggle room until I get everything positioned exactly as I am happy with it. Again, I cut off the excess and used that to kind of create this, just to add more details. So we've got this more framed effect, and I really liked that. I thought it really carried the page and it meant the page flowed really nicely. There was kind of a story to it. I added a few extra die cuts as well. We had some little clouds, so I've cut those in and put them across the page, chopped one in half so that we can have one on one side of the page and one on the other. Now, just to help those images pop, I like to do a bit of shadowing. I do love a bit of shadowing, but this time we've gone for a nice bright blue colour just to kind of represent the sky, and I'm just going to put that around each of the images that we have in the frame, and it just really helps them to pop off the page. And I also think it helps it to look a little bit more like an actual framed picture, because if we'd taken photographs of these things, there would be sky behind it. So I think it works. So it's not just my obsession with needing to add shadows. It works. It works for the composition, and I'm happy with that. So we just kind of add that to all of the pictures, and I do think it kind of at this point is really pulling together. So finally, I just want to add a little bit of a sentiment to the page. So I have taken the stamps. There was 2 sentiments there, where leaves dance and stories breathe, and enchanted paths and curious hearts. So I stamped those out and chopped them up nice and small, edged them with black pen because it's me, I have to do that because it just frames everything nicely and help it pop off the page a lot more. Stick those down, and then that is us done. So this is the second page. They are both really, really different, but I absolutely love them. If you enjoy art journaling, you might want to check out this playlist right here for lots more creative ideas for your journal.